learn about Mukesh is that Mukesh is a deep thinker, and Mukesh can talk a lot about many wonderful things. So I propose we kickstart. So formally, Wamindjika, welcome from Melbourne. I am Sophie, delighted to be hosting you today. Our guest is Mukesh Gupta, and Mukesh indeed is a man of many talents. And he is a very, very busy man. And I'll share a little bit of detail about that in a moment. But before doing that, of course, welcome everyone. This is an interactive session. Please do use the chat box. Please do write your questions, your comments, your reactions as we go, and we'll make sure that your questions are answered. We'll open up the floor for discussion after Mukesh presents, and he's going to be sharing a lot of his insights from us, and it really is the perfect person to do this because he has a wealth of experience in transformation and innovation. And we all know we are here because we believe in the power of business transformation, and can't it be costly and complex? And we hear a lot of stories. Between us, we could talk, no doubt, for hours about innovation theatre, what looks flashy but leads to little. The corporate immune system, how it attacks those good ideas and innovations and transformations and can lead to little again. So we're wanting to spend some time on the myths and the mistakes and how we can get past them to do our best work in business transformation in 2023. Mukesh joins us from Singapore. He will be here in Australia, in Melbourne and Sydney at the end of June, and we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But let's introduce the man. He is an instigator and leadership coach, and I am referring to my notes because there is quite a lot to refer to here. He is an experienced business executive and a thought leader with over 25 years of experience, demonstrating the ability to deliver rapid and lasting growth for businesses across various industries and across large and small enterprises. He has a lot to say and a lot to think about and write and speak to about innovation and transformation. And people want to listen. Mukesh has over 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. And so aren't we lucky to have him for the hour today? He has written 3 books: Your Startup Mentor, Thrive, Mindsets and Skill Sets to Succeed in a World Surrounded by Smart Machines and Intelligent Algorithms. And his latest book, Being Happy, is a collection of short stories focused on how to be and stay happy. And the book cover has a very personal connection, which he might share with us. It's a beautiful, beautiful cover that we've just learned the significance of before everyone jumped on the call. And so Mukesh is a thought leader focusing on leadership in general and leading innovation and transformation in particular. His blog, Leading Transformation, was recognised as one of the top 40 blogs on innovation globally by Disruptors League between 2016 and 2021. Mukesh has a lot to say. My time in the spotlight is over. Over to you, Mukesh, to start busting myths for us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sophie, for such a generous introduction. It's a very difficult act to follow after the introduction that you've kindly given to me. So I'll try to share some of my learnings, some of my insights that I've garnered over the last 2.5 decades. But before we do that, right? So we are talking about transformation, and we're talking about myths and mistakes in transformation. But before we even go there, can I ask every one of you to kind of, on the chat, write some of the best advice that you think you've got when it comes to leading business transformation? What are some of the advices? What are some of the things that experts talk about all the time when it comes to leading transformation? I'll just wait for a minute or so to see, what comes up on the chat. And as Sophie said, it's going to be an interactive session. So please feel free to interact, ask questions, share comments. It's a conversation and not a presentation in a way. Okay, thanks, Michael, for starting the chat on top leadership support for transformation. Don't design in a closed room, experiment and engage. Nice, thank you. full value chains, be open to elevating yourself. Nice. Secure buy-in along the way from a variety of stakeholders. It's okay to fail fast and learn. Yeah. Okay. Maybe another 30 seconds to see if anyone else has anything to share. While I bring up my slide, maybe you should actually continue to share. Explain transformation mean to the lower management. Okay. So if someone can just check and confirm whether you are able to see my slides as well. Sophie, can you see my slides? Okay, super. So all very valid points and common knowledge and common prescription when it comes to leading transformations. So as Sophie suggested, the significance of the book cover of my latest book, Being Happy, it was designed by my son when he was 16. He wanted to be a designer, and I told him, why don't you design the cover of my book? And this is what we ended up with. So that's the significance of that cover. The first book cover was a photograph that I took very, very early in my career of a coffee cup that was served at a coffee shop, which went on the cover of the first book. The middle book, which is Thrive, the cover is something that I designed myself, though nothing spectacular about it, right? So that tells how much design experience I have. Having said that, I do have some experience when it comes to leading transformation. I do have some experience when it comes to innovation, how to go beyond innovation theater and actually drive significant business results. So today we will talk a little bit about myths and mistakes people generally commit while leading transformation. Some of these are going to be moments where, yeah, we all know that. And some of this might come to you as a surprise based on my experience, might be a little bit counterintuitive. So as I said, this is a conversation and not a presentation. I'm as much here to learn as much as everyone else is. So having said that, maybe we just get started. So I've divided this talk into two sections. One is about myths. I'll talk about 4 myths. And one is about mistakes. I'll talk about 6 mistakes as we go along. So between moving from myths to mistakes, we'll take a pause and we'll probably look at some questions, comments, and have a conversation before we move to the next segment. So with that, let's get started. So the first one is that transformation projects are once and done. What do I mean by once and done? In a lot of organizations, what I have seen is a transformation project, by definition, is a project, which means there is a clear start date, there is a clear end date, and it is run by itself. And the expectation is that you will run the project. At the end of the project, you kind of announce that as done and dusted and move on as if, your business continues to operate in a vacuum. Now, the myth here is that it is never that. It is always an ongoing process. It is a business skill, just like, for example, finance, just like, for example, marketing. So is transformation. And one of the significant thing that I have seen in organizations that are able to deliver significant business results through transformation exercises is their insane focus on enabling their leaders across the organization, whether it is frontline managers until about CEOs and CXOs, the insane focus on helping them understand what it means to be, number one, leading well, number two, leading with under a condition of uncertainty, and number three, leading transformative transformations from that point of view. And this focus and this ability of the entire leadership to not only understand what it means to leading transformation, but also to see this in action all around them. So it is one thing to train them on the process and on the ability to lead transformations, and it is completely different for them to actually see this happening all around them. We are living in an age where change and transformation is becoming the norm. The entire context around us, the business is changing, the amount of disruptions that we face is just one after the other. So which means that any transformation exercise is the way businesses are run. So there is no separate leading transformation as such. It is just leading a business. And the entire thing is about leading transformative change within the organization. So that's the first myth that I wanted to kind of talk about. A lot of people might already know about this. A lot of people intuitively understand this. But if you actually look at organizations which are actually driving transformations, you will very clearly see that they are treating this as yet another project or as yet another program, even though they know that it is not, even though they know that this is the way to run their business and not a separate project, so to say. But still, 8 out of 10 companies that I look at, and I look at a lot of companies in my job, I work with hundreds of companies who are driving transformation, digital transformation to be more precise in their organization. And I see this every single time in 8 out of 10 companies that they run this as a project or a program. Do not. It is the way to run the business. As simple as that. So, second myth is that people are resistant to change. So what we need to do is to entice them by either providing logical reasons why people need to change, by appealing to their emotions, by communicating the real need for change. In my opinion and in my experience, people are not resistant to change per se. If they were, nobody would ever get married. No one would ever get a child. People are open to change. What they are not open to, what they are resistant to, is change in which they don't have any voice. People are resistant to change when they do not understand, or when their values and when their objectives and when their goals are not aligned to what the change is talking about. And we will come to this later when we talk about mistakes as well. But the resistance to change also varies depending upon the people whom we are trying to get to change. Some people are more open to change. Some people are easier to change. Some people actually want to change. And some people want to know why they should change. And some people need to know that the change is good for them. So there is a variety of people. And by putting all of them into a single bucket and assuming that people resist change, what we are doing is we are doing the change or the transformation right at the start. Because the way we approach, the mindset we bring into change actually comes across in the entire activities that we do. So if we believe that people are resistant to change, everything that we do stems from that belief, and that easily people can understand. They say gut feel, right? So they know from within their gut that someone is trying to get them to change, whether or not they like the change. So that's the second myth. Do not assume that people are resistant to change. There is a variation in terms of where people lie when it comes to their openness to change. So if you start from that assumption that it is a scale and it is a spectrum where people are, and the spectrum is about openness to change rather than resistance to change, the activities and the communication that follows from that approach is vastly different from assuming that people are resistant to change. So that's the second myth that I wanted to talk about. Third one is the myth of a visionary leader. So I did not see this come across in the chat earlier, but one of the things that everyone talks about when it comes to leading transformation is the need for a leader, who has a great vision and who's able to communicate the vision in clear terms, and is able to tell stories and move people when it comes to and how important that is when it comes to leading transformations. I used to believe this as well, but the more I see organizations struggling through transformation, the more I see organizations that are actually succeeding in their transformation efforts, I've come to believe that this is a necessary but not sufficient condition for successful transformation. While it is necessary that you need someone who has a good vision, a clear vision in terms of where we are going towards, why we are going there, and what it means for us to go there, or whichever is the vision, it is not sufficient. True change, true transformation does not happen through communication that these leaders actually share, but it happens in between conversations between people who are being led. So for transformation to be successful, what you need is not necessarily just a visionary leader, but you need an engaged workforce who have these conversations amongst themselves. And in those conversations is where change actually takes place. And in those conversations is where transformation can actually take root. And the leader's responsibility in this case is like a gardener. You till the ground, you sow the seeds, which is the vision and the purpose of the transformation exercise, and then water it, create a culture or an environment where these conversations can emerge, where these communication amongst people can emerge, where people feel free to express themselves and to be themselves and to change at the pace that they want to change, while at the same time pruning out all the weeds or all the wrong communication or the miscommunication in the entire process. So that's the role of a leader in the entire transformation process. And as long as you have a leader who can do this really well, you don't have to worry about everything else too much, assuming that the workforce is engaged and the transformation that you're leading is beneficial for all the stakeholders concerned. And everyone believes that, right? So that's the third myth that I want to kind of talk about. So the fourth one is change is either top down or bottoms up, which means it is either driven by the senior leadership. I think this came across in the opening conversation that we had on the chat, that you need to have buy-in from the leaders, and you need to have them visibly leading and talking about this transformation, the importance of this transformation, the purpose of this transformation all the way along. Or it is grounds up, which is what is happening in the Apple ecosystem, right? So they're coming together, forming unions and driving transformation within the Apple organization bottoms up. What in my experience I have seen is that change or transformation does not happen until it happens from both sides. You need people from the top to talk about the importance of the transformation. You need people at the bottom to feel the need for that transformation, and both going across the organization. You will find that the biggest challenge when it comes to leading successful transformation is the middle management. The top leaders understand why they need to change, because they see the reality, they see the business, and they understand that they do not change, or if they do not transform, there is a significant challenge for their business as they go along. Right at the bottom, everyone sees and feels the need for change, because they are the one who are interacting with customers, partners, and they acutely feel the need for the change. It is the middle layer who doesn't want or who doesn't see the change, both the reality that the frontline folks see and the vision that the top management has. And therefore, unless they get this feedback both from the top management and from the frontline staff, very difficult to change. And if you win over this middle management, when it comes to driving significant transformations, half your battle is done, because they control the budgets, they control the KPIs of the organization, they control the resources of the organization. And if you can actually get them to open up and to kind of support your transformation effort, there is a significant amount of energy released, there is a significant amount of resources released, there is a significant amount of time, attention that gets released within the organization that can then drive the transformation. So those are the 4 myths that I wanted to talk about. I'll just stop here for a moment and let's have a conversation about what do you think about the 4 myths that I shared. So do you agree? Do you not agree? Is there a comment that you want to share? So please unmute yourself and talk to us.
Mukesh, I'll jump in with one. So I'd like to challenge it. So even though I guess you've got some good cases and good examples that you brought up there, I just wonder whether those examples are the exception. Because all those myths, I have been in those cases, and it's kind of felt that the top-down leadership and guide is definitely a big enabler and will help things go along. So there's success there. But yeah, the Apple example you used, is that an exception, or are we seeing that more and more through other organizations?
So thanks for the question and for the pushback as well. And I think more and more I'm seeing the importance of both top-down and bottom-up leadership from that point of view. So I'll tell you this, a lot of transformation today is around a technology-driven transformation. And a lot of times what is happening is that the end users or the frontline staff, they understand the technology that is available that can make their life simpler much more than any other people within the organization. And they are the ones who actually come back to the organization, to the IT organization, to the middle management, to the senior management, and say that we need these tools in order for us to do our work better. We need these tools in order for us to be more productive. And this is how we can actually significantly jump our productivity and the pace at which we can achieve whatever it is that the senior management has actually set out as a vision to achieve. So what I'm more and more seeing is this movement from both top down and bottom up. And when both of these come together, that's when true magic happens. In a lot of organizations, it is either top down, saying that leaders keep banging, saying that this is what we need to do. Here is the mandate. Here is the new policy. Here is what we expect you to do. Here is a new process. All of that. Whereas the true impact of all of that happens at the bottom, where the rubber meets the road. There is another example that you can think of. In almost all armies today, they have this commander's intent. I don't know how many of you have heard of this. The commander's intent is just a very simple one statement or a one-page document which says that, okay, this is what I want to do, or this is what I want to achieve as part of this action initiative that I'm taking. That is what gets passed down to every level down. And if nothing else, that person, the team knows that this is the objective. They may have a plan to reach that objective, but along the line, things change. Plans no longer are possible to implement. But as long as they know what the commander's intent was, the last soldier, until he's alive and until he's able to act on, knows what it is that the commander wanted. And that is what we are seeing more and more in organizations as well, which is where leaders show the intent and allow the teams to kind of, approach and bring in the tools and technologies and the processes in order to achieve whatever was intended. And that's what I mean when I say that, top down, bottom up, coming together makes magic happen. Does that answer or in some way address what you talk about, Christian?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I'm just reading the text as well, just to sort of say that as companies shift towards giving a bit more autonomy to everyone, it's a bit of a challenge because technology is moving that quickly. It's hard for everybody in business to keep up with it. But then there's a question to the grip, and really this is where it's kind of poised, is transformation leadership obsolete?
Sorry, come again. Transformation leadership is obsolete?
Is leadership of a transformation, is that obsolete? Is that no longer needed?
Not really. So you still need someone who understands where the business is going, where they need to go and set the vision. And as I said, right, so it's the leader's responsibility to create that environment where everyone else can do the work that they need to do in order to be successful. The role of a gardener, right? So I think that is where leadership is going more and more towards, rather than command and I know everything, I tell you, you do it. That structure is long gone. If I remember correctly, Roger Martin in his last book, Humanocracy, also talks about hire, which Sophie mentioned as well. And he also talks about the fact that more and more you will find that leaders' responsibility is like the gardener. You're more and more responsible for setting a vision and creating a culture where everyone can actually come together and work together in a way, in whatever way, to achieve whatever is the vision that has been set to. I see, Harshita, you have your hand up. So would you like to unmute yourself?
Yep, sure. Thanks, Mukesh. I agree with your first myth that organizations are searching for the end date for their transformation, and it's always a continual process, and it is always looked as a project, and I completely agree with it. But fundamentally, organizations have a set budget, have a set timeline to achieve something. That's how the organizations are constructed. That's how we see the outcome is. Do you think that this transformation projects should run like a BAU kind of it? So that should have a specific funding as well. Each transformation project should have some sort of an outcome, and that needs to be measured at a particular point in time. If we don't put it in a form of a project or in terms of a program, how are we going to measure the output kind of thing? So how it works?
Great question, Harshita. I think this is top of mind for everyone as well. What I'm seeing in organizations that I think are probably really have cracked this ability to successfully lead transformations within their organization, within their industries even, is that they don't see transformation as a separate activity from running their business. So they run transformation as if that is their business, which means that there is no separate budget allocated for transformation efforts. There is no separate start date or end date allocated or planned for transformation exercise. Every organization within the company, for example, whether it is sales, whether it is marketing, whether it is production, whether it is finance, whether it is security, risk, IT, every one of them, they do not get any separate budget or any separate resources for driving transformation. It is expected that they drive transformation as their regular business. And what I mean by that is that you will find more and more these organizations which will pop up, which on an ongoing basis continually challenge the norms of the business, of the industry. They continuously on an ongoing basis will challenge themselves as to know how they've been operating and is that the best way to operate. And given that the technology landscape is such that there is significant amount of new innovations and new capabilities that are coming up from a technology perspective, they're always on the lookout for what next. How can I drive significant results with significantly lower efforts, significantly lower investments, and that's their normal day-to-day business. So I can tell you this, for example, Asian Paints in India is one such organization. They are considered to be at the cutting edge of technology when it comes to any kind of technology deployment. They are the early adopters for all sorts of technologies. They are considered to be the industry leaders when it comes to technology adoption in a very, very old industry. Paint industry is one of the oldest industry that you can think of. And in that industry, to drive such significant transformation is not an easy deal. And more you find that it is such organizations, by adopting these new practices when transformation is the regular business, are able to number one, increase their top line, number two, increase their profitability, number three, increase the return to their investors. And that is why you'll find that their ability to give returns on capital employed is significantly higher than a lot of other peers and a lot of their, even across industries. So I don't know whether I addressed your question, but transformation becomes your day-to-day job. There is no separate transformation project. There is no separate transformation program. There is no separate transformation budget. That is how you run your business.
Mukesh, following on from Harshita's comment, a lot of the material, a lot of the written stuff, in fact, most of it presents transformation as a project that organizations take on. Transformation, this thing, transformation, they take it on. So the language that we're using, and language is a very definitive factor in, it has enormous power to influence reality. And I'm wondering whether we should be talking about helping organize, about becoming a transformational organization. We should be motivating or inspiring organizations to become a transformational organization. So they then have to embrace a lot of what we're talking about that makes a good transformation as a thing or a project, but it does reflect more that ongoing process. This is not something that has a start and a finish. This is a vision we've got that we want to make our organisation transformational. And we will keep on doing it. We will just, because we all know from COVID that, there is no beginning and no end to anything anymore. So we might, what we're going to, 2 years' time, we're still becoming a transformational organisation. In 10 years' time, we're still it just keeps going.
So if I may use an analogy, it is a spiral, never-ending spiral, and maybe even an infinity loop, right? So you start doing something, you identify a particular challenge, you organize yourself and work in such a way that you are overcoming the challenge. You pick the next challenge, and you go through the same cycle again and again and again and again. I don't think we should even call transformational organizations as such. I think transformational practices, or some of these things that we are talking about, should become the norm within the organization. So, for example, in the past, I don't know whether I'm dating myself here. In the past, there used to be organizations which would say that we are running a Six Sigma project. They will run it for 1 year, 2 years, they achieve Six Sigma, and then what? So they continue to do it, right? So that becomes part and parcel of how they operate. So they no longer call themselves a Six Sigma operation, because everyone knows that they are a Six Sigma operation. They have achieved that Six Sigma. So there is no point in continuing to call themselves a Six Sigma operation. So it is embedded in how they run the organization itself. And that's what I'm trying to drive towards, which is some of these practices that we are talking about needs to become embedded within the organization such that that is how the organization operates. There is no separation between a regular business practice versus a transformative business practice. They are one and the same, which means that we can drop the language transformation from the vocabulary altogether. And that's what I'm driving towards. And that's what some of the most leading practitioners and some of the most leading organizations which successfully run from one transformation to the other have already done. They do not call any of these as a transformational project. It is the way business is run, as simple as that. It's the norm. We pick one challenge, significantly large challenge, go after it using all these things that we're talking about and achieve whatever they are trying to achieve, then move on to the next one, then move on to the next one, the next. It is a never-ending loop. And I can tell you this, some of the most smart leaders, CEOs, they've also understood that if they do not keep up and if they do not imbibe these things within their normal operational capabilities, the chances that they will survive in the next 20 years or 10 years is going down every year. So it's a very, very well-known fact that, the number of years that an organization stays in the top 100 or top 1,000 organizations in the world is reducing. And what does that mean? It means that if you do not imbibe these as your operating philosophy, the chances that the names that drop off from those top 100 or top 1,000 lists will be one of yours. And that is why these are the leaders who are willing and who are open to imbibing these things within their operational model. And they don't talk about it as transformation anymore. Literature needs to still catch up. One of the challenges with literature is also the fact that most of the literature always looks at case studies and reports on case studies. Let's say, for example, XYZ company did this and were successful. ABC did this and so were successful. Another company did this and they were successful. By the way, these are the three practices that were common across all those three companies. So we believe that these are the best practices for you to incorporate in your organization so that you can also be successful at leading transformation. So it is always following behind what is already taking place in the organization. And what I'm talking to you about today is what I'm seeing within these organizations. So I'm cutting down the lag time between what is actually happening within the organization and what is being reported and studied and researched. And maybe you'll start seeing this literature coming up maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line. Some of the thinkers, leading thinkers, are already talking about it. So Roger Martin talks about it as well. So you'll start seeing literature popping up across this as well. So I'm not seeing. Yeah, please go
Mikesh,
on.
can I just I'm going to be a little bit cheeky and invite Cherie to make a comment. So Cherie and I are working with an amazing company in the Philippines at the moment that does have a large transformation program, and it's set over the short term to develop new products, new services, updated business models, disruptive innovation to solve wicked problems. But that forms a part of a larger piece of shifting what is a conglomerate to become different in the way it operates within the world. Cherie has amazing observations on this. Cherie, could I invite you to share your thoughts briefly?
Sure, thanks, Sophie. I apologize I'm late. I was actually on a call with that client who are 2 hours behind us. So that's why I was joining late, but I will watch the recording. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, so just catching the tail end of the discussion, I I really agree with you, Mukesh. And actually, I talk about this on my website and in my work. I've got, like, I'm looking at my website now and I say lead transformation as a process, not a project. And I've actually defined 8 zones of what I call transformation activity that are more like enterprise activities that need to be embedded and aligned. But I liken transformation to this ongoing oscillation. Having a background in organizational change, you know, I think the sort of less mature, less wise change practitioners talk about, you know, the current state and the future state. And that's just rubbish because we're always changing. And I remember having a moment about this when I was working in a large bank, and a team of executives went on a study trip to the USA, and they went and visited all the big companies that we, you know, Facebook and, you know, lots of startups and lots of big companies. And I remember they gave a debrief on what they'd learned. And one of these executives who was in charge of the transformation portfolio for this big bank said, I went to Facebook and I asked them how they deal with change, and I got a blank stare because change is what they do. Change, you know, they change every day. And so I think it's about, you know, we're constantly changing, we're constantly improving. So getting back to the company that we're working with in the Philippines, they do talk about this great transformation, and they're striving to become a techglomerate, and they're striving to create internal innovators and entrepreneurs. And I think that's not going to be the end state, of course. They're just saying, here's a signpost, here's a milestone we're trying to get to, and we're trying to set this bold vision and this goal, and we're trying to rally everyone towards that and put a lot of emphasis and energy into that. And I'm sure then there'll be another signpost that they'll go towards. So, and I think by creating internal entrepreneurs and innovators, they're developing that muscle of, you know, let's empower everyone to be innovators, to be transformers, and to drive change towards a clear purpose. And in their case, it's advancing business and communities. So I think there's always going to be more to do, but they're really trying to embed it in their DNA, is what I'm seeing. Does that resonate with you, Sophie?
Yes, it does. And we're not seeing anything quite like it in Australia, but maybe it's not in our worldview. So if anyone has anything across their radar that they're seeing in Australia, great. Otherwise, I think what a wonderful concept to leave today with. This is not the wrap-up point at all, but having signposts and thinking of it as a journey and moving away from the projects. I think it's a really great discussion. Thanks.
If it is okay, I'll continue with my presentation and talk about the 6 mistakes that I see all the time happen. So just give me a second. Let me just share my screen again. So first and foremost, the biggest mistake that I see across organizations which are going through transformation is that they assume, number one, that communication happened, and that number 2, it is enough. I briefly alluded to the fact that transformation does not happen through communication, but transformation happens in conversation, during water cooler conversations, during lunch conversations, during coffee corners. As long as people see their peers talking about the change, talking about the transformative effort that the organization is going through, and what are they talking about, has much more impact than what is formally communicated by the leaders. So it is important, it is necessary that the leaders communicate what is it that they're trying to achieve. It is important that every line manager along the line, along the hierarchy talks about this. But it is a big mistake to assume that that is sufficient. It is a big mistake to assume that having explained the rationale behind the change, that having appealed to both the logical side of people by giving the logic, by appealing to the emotional side of people by talking about stories, is enough to get people to change. So one of the things that I have seen across organizations, both within my own organization and outside as well, is that people are at various stages of their ability to accept and move on with change. So some are more eager, some are less eager. If you look at it from a spectrum perspective, on one end are the guys who are more than willing to work with you and co-create the transformation that you're trying to achieve. And on the other end of the spectrum are conspirators who actively will try to to stop you from achieving whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And everywhere in between there are people, right? Now, when you're communicating, one of the things that we need to understand is that different stages or different groups of people need different messaging. So people who are eager to change require a different kind of messaging than those who are kind of sitting on the fence and want to see where the change is going towards, and they will tilt wherever the wind is going. To people, completely different kind of communication to people who do not want to change, and to those people who actively want to stop you from changing, right? And that nuance is missing in a lot of organizations. What I see is one single email being sent out to everybody. Maybe, in an all hands, the leaders talking about the necessity for change, maybe, having one or two stories to appeal to the emotions, and then expecting everyone to change. Doesn't happen. Communication alone is not enough. You need to spark those conversations during the coffee corners, during the water cooler conversations, during the lunch conversations. And you need to identify the right kind of message for the right kind of audience. A lot like marketing, good marketing, so to say. You need to know the target market. You need to know what exactly they need to hear, where they need to hear, how they need to hear, and deliver that message accordingly. And it is not even necessary that you engage the entire gamut of population in one go. All you need is to create a big enough mass of people who wants to change, such that everyone else around them, seeing them change, also wants to be part of the change. Human tendency is that we want to be part of something bigger. So if people see around them people wanting to change, people driving towards and being excited about the transformation, automatically you will find that more and more people want to join that bandwagon rather than be left behind. There'll always be some people who never wants to change. You do whatever you want to, you cannot get them to change unless they are forced to change, because what they wanted is no longer possible because everyone else has changed. So that's mistake number one. So mistake number two is missing the context. What do I mean by missing the context? So if, for example, you are an organization which has tried to do 2 or 3 transformation attempts in the past and have failed miserably, if you do not keep that, if you do not bring that context into your planning for the transformation, if you do not understand why that happened and what needs to change in order for your effort to kind of, deliver a different kind of a results, you will only repeat the same mistakes. And when I say context, I don't necessarily just mean the past transformational experience context. I also mean the context within which the organization operates. So is your organization a sales heavy organization? Is your organization a manufacturing heavy organization? When I say manufacturing heavy, almost all decisions are made and flow out of that particular organization. So some organization, for example, I can tell you this, automotive organizations, they are either manufacturing heavy, which means the manufacturing dictates everything else, or sales heavy, which means that the market and the sales dynamic dictates everything else. So if you are a marketing heavy organization, and if you want to really change significantly, you need to understand what does that mean for that marketing team or the manufacturing team to go through that change. Or if it is a sales heavy organization, what does that mean for them? And if they change, what is the ripple effect that needs to go across the organization in order for that change to take root? So you do not operate in a vacuum. You operate in the in an environment. So you need to not only understand the organization that you're trying to change, the people that you're trying to change, but you also need to understand the environment within which this is happening. And the culture of the organization is also significantly important. And that also needs to be kept in mind when it comes to leading transformation. Sometimes a band-aid approach is really good, which means that, you do a large change and you do it really fast. Sometimes ripping off a bandage is not what the organization needs. It needs a lot more nuanced and a lot more slower and a more deeper conversation kind of an approach. Again, that depends on the kind of organization and the kind of culture of that organization. So do not miss the context within which you're trying to lead the transformation. So third one is not engaging all the right stakeholders. What do I mean by this? I don't necessarily mean just the different leaders within the organization. So if you actually look at the entire population of the organization, I think they can be divided into three parts. Think of this as a Venn diagram. Okay, so one is those who are impacted by the transformation exercise, which means their behavior needs to change from what they are doing to something else. So those are the impacted people. The second set of people are people who are influential leaders within the organization. These are leaders who control resources. These are leaders who control money. These are leaders who control attention, and they need to be involved in the change or the transformation process. And then there are these influential connectors. What do I mean by this? In every organization, there is a formal hierarchy, which means that, this person reports to this person, reports to this person, reports to this person. But in reality, if you want to get some work done, if you follow the hierarchy, the work will not get done, because there is always someone else or a parallel hierarchy, which is the social network, where you can actually get the work done. You need to know those influential connectors who are super smart and super efficient when it comes to getting work done within the organization. Everyone knows who these people are within the organization. So you need to figure out all these three stakeholders and where they are, and the combination of all three. So for example, someone who is getting impacted, who is an influential leader and is also an influential connector, needs to be part of the steering committee, which means that the steering committee is not necessarily just made up of senior leaders. It is made up of people who get affected by the change, people who control the resources for that change to happen, and people who can actually get work done. So all three coming together becomes stakeholders. For people who are getting impacted and are also influential leaders, they need to be kept up to date in terms of sharing reports, communication in terms of the progress and all of that. People who are connectors and influential leaders, you recruit change agents from there. You cannot drive these change or the initiatives or transformation by yourself. You need to have on-ground change agents. That combination of influential leaders and influential connectors are your change leaders, because they can not only make shit happen, but they also control the resources to make that happen, right? And when you look at the people who are kind of impacted and are influential connectors, they are the ones whom you need to go for feedback. So this is what we are trying to do. What do you think? Will this work? What can we do, or what can we change in this approach so that it becomes that much more effective? They will give you valuable feedback, super critical, super practical, that will actually improve the efficiency and productivity and the speed at which you can lead these changes or the transformation. That is what I mean by engaging the right stakeholders. So fourth one is not thinking in terms of systems. So every organization is a system. There is one part getting connected to the other, to the other, to the other. You change one thing somewhere, it will definitely have an impact somewhere else. So knowing and understanding the fact that we are operating in a systems environment and keeping this in mind and knowing where to look for and to actually go looking for the unintended consequences of what you're doing, and to explore whether or not that's good for the organization or bad for the organization. is super important. And another thing when it comes to thinking in terms of systems is to create these red flag devices. So I'm pretty sure all of you would have heard about the red flag device that Toyota production system had, which means that at any point in time, anyone in the production system can stop the production line if they see something that is not as it is supposed to be. And then everyone comes together, figures out what the issue is, corrects it, and then the production continues. There is even a customer, there is an organization in the US, a marble manufacturing organization, who have a publicly stated policy. They say, if you're not 100% satisfied with your experience and with the product that you buy from us, we will give you 100% refund for that particular product or for that particular service. And you do not have to return the material back to us, which means you keep the material and we will refund you for the material that you bought from us as well. What that means is that everyone in that organization is acutely observing and is focused on delivering the best possible customer service and the best possible product, because every time there is a refund that has happened, it triggers a workflow within the organization and someone asks, okay, what the hell happened? And people are held accountable. So this is again a way for you to put in place a system such that the transformation that you're expecting to happen happens by default. Right? So that's another aspect of thinking in terms of systems. So the fifth one is something which I see in almost 9 out of 10 projects. So in any transformation effort, there is going to be a point in time when you're neither here nor there. So you're in the middle of transition. So if you do not have a clear idea or a clear guideline on how people need to act during these periods of transition, what will always happen is that people will go back to their past behavior or the behavior that they are used to, and you have to start again from the scratch, because this period of transition is very, how do I put it? It induces fear, it induces confusion, it puts people in a position where they don't know what to do. So you need to be extra clear in terms of what do you expect them to do during these periods of transition. Last but not the least, missing to account for inertia, which means that, like the physics, the law of physics, which state that, in order for an object to stay in motion, there needs to be a constant force applied to it. If not, then inertia will actually act on it and it will come to a rest. Same thing happens in any transformation project. Unless you continually apply energy, when I say energy, I mean resources, I mean acknowledgement, I mean recognition, I mean time, attention. It can be in whatever currency that we are talking about. But until you continue to apply these energies to your transformation effort, people will fall back and go back to their usual way of working. And that is the biggest risk that I see when it comes to transformation projects or transformation efforts, in a way, failing. So that's kind of the presentation that I had. Before we start a question, just wanted to share that, I'm running a masterclass on leading alongside AI. This is 2 weeks from now. If you think that's something that you would like to join, please do join. You can use friends and family as the code to get a 100% discount on the ticket price. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Sophie.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mukesh. Friends and family as the code to get that masterclass. That's very generous of you. Thank you, Mukesh. We are technically at time, and we stand in the way of people going to get their dinner. So what I propose we do is, if there are any burning questions, perhaps Mukesh, if you stop sharing screen, let's go to gallery mode. And if anyone has a burning question, please, you have 5 seconds to raise your hand. Otherwise, I invite you to indeed reach out to Mukesh Mukesh is on LinkedIn and is very responsive. There's Mukesh's email address there. Wonderful. So please join me in thanking Mukesh. What a thought-provoking session. And thank you everyone for being engaging. I love that in season 8, we're on a journey of discovery and learning what is needed, what is right for us as individuals in business transformation, but also circling back to the question, what do we need in Australia, and having these insights that are gleaned from your work and also your, can I say, slightly obsessive study, Mukesh, and talking to transformation leaders around the world. We're so fortunate to have benefited from that. Mukesh will be in Australia in June and we'll be running leading transformation workshops. So if there's any interest there, please do reach out to Mukesh. We're 1 minute past. I have just one further comment to make, and that is that next week we will be on a break. So we will see you back on Tuesday, the 23rd of May, when Natalie Collard, the CEO of the Quartz Group and the CEO of Food and Fibre Great South Coast, will be with us. Natalie is a very busy woman and is very much looking forward to talking to us about the fine art of relentless transformation and keeping friends. So I want to stay friends with you all. So I'm going to call time so you can all go get your dinner. Thanks for joining us. See you.
Thank you so much for hosting me, Sophie.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Mukesh.
everyone.
Thanks, Sophie. Hey, Daryl.
Thanks so much. Mish, I will
Great
send you.
segue.
What was that?
That's a great segue into, I want to keep you all as friends.
That's it.
Go and eat your dinner. I loved it. Oh, that was good. Really great.
Very,
Yeah.
very good. Mish, I will send you something, if not tonight, tomorrow, to go into the write-up.
Yeah. And we should definitely put the code. Oh, so we wouldn't put the code in the post, would you? Where would you put the code? Maybe if people emailed Mish could, yeah, I don't know. How would you do it?
Or I think the code takes you to an Eventbrite link. So we could just
Oh, does
include
it?
the web link in
Yes.
the